I'm convening the regular board meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District for August 18th, 2021. May I have we do have a closed session, so may I have a roll call, please, Julia?
Yes, thank you. Borstein?
Yes.
Gaffney?
Here.
Beggs?
Here.
Villa?
Here.
Kelly?
Here.
All present, thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to lead the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now I'd like to adjourn to the closed session. So if we can all log out and log back in at the closed session address. Thank you. It's now 5:30, and I'm going to reconvene the regular board meeting of August 18th, 2021 to session. There is nothing to report from the closed session. I'd like to see if we have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Do I have it? Okay. Julia, can I have a roll call, please?
Thank you very much. Borstein?
Yes.
Gaffney?
Yes.
Beggs?
Yes.
Villa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes. And so now I'd like to move on to item number 7, open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agenda items. Anyone wishing to address the board of directors on matters within the district's jurisdiction, but not on the posted agenda, may do so. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Sometimes we waive that. The board may not take action on or discuss items not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements or questions by a member of the public. The board president may refer any matter to staff for further follow-up or elect to have the matter placed on a future agenda item. Do we have anybody in the public? Chris, please, by all means.
Yeah, hi, Steve. Thanks for noticing me. Actually, my name's Eric Morey. This is my wife's computer. She has a camera on it.
Hi, Eric.
Anyway, yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm a stakeholder of 31 years here in the San Geronimo Valley. I'm also a mechanical engineer, and I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you today. What I'm here to talk about, I'm very concerned about efforts from a minority of local residents here in the San Geronimo Valley who keep pushing for a community sewer in the valley. You know, while we appreciate your concern for the health and safety of our watershed, the majority of us are happy with our current septic systems. They use little to no energy, they're self-contained, and they replenish the groundwater. There's several reasons why we don't want a community sewer here in the San Geronimo Valley. In a world where we need to reduce our carbon footprint, it makes no sense to pump our sewage 15 miles to San Rafael for treatment. And while a malfunctioning septic system may release a few gallons of sewage, there is no comparison to the thousands of gallons of sewage that will be released from a broken force main, especially if that break is over a creek. Instead of determining if there is capacity of the treatment plant for the valley's combined sewage, it would be more helpful if you would help us determine if there is really a need for a community sewer. Our local planning group used the chip technology to test several creek locations in the valley for sewage markers, and we found that the highest amount of contamination was on Montezuma Creek and Forest Knolls, not in the Woodacre Flats. It would be more helpful to locate the few malfunctioning systems in the valley and repair them than to spend millions of dollars on an unnecessary community sewer. We can do that with a chip technology, but we lack the funds to carry out a comprehensive survey of all of our creeks. The hundreds of thousands of dollars that were wasted on an aborted treatment plant project at our former golf course could have been better spent. Please don't squander the resources of the Ross Valley Sanitary District on something that nobody wants and nobody needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. In response to that, I just want to say that all we're doing at this point is a capacity study. A capacity study is done about every 15 years. The last time we did one was in 2006. It's merely a thing that, you know, any responsible water district, sanitary or clean water, should do a capacity study. And we're looking not in the next 5 years, but in the next 100 to 150 years. So it's simply a study. We're going to have a study. We'd be very, very, very much interested in your opinion and the voice of you and your fellow neighbors when the study is complete in about a year. But this is just a capacity thing. So if something happened, if HUD decides we're going to have whatever we're going to have, what is the capacity we must be prepared for, whether we like it or not? And that's all this is. So thank you very much for coming tonight. I certainly appreciate it. And the board would be very welcome to hear in writing if you have anything regarding the studies you are interested in hearing about. We'd be happy to take that into consideration.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and thank you for planning ahead.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks again. Okay, so with that, let's go to number 8, committee report out. Number 1 is the Finance Committee. Tom, would you take that?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Doug and I met yesterday and reviewed the year-end financial statements. We both agreed that the district is in excellent financial condition. We had several comments. One especially, which we're going to bring, staff's going to bring to the board, is the investment of pension funds. And you saw they're listed 2. I think there are 3 alternative investment programs that we can make. And I think it's important that the board as a whole, review that again. We also discussed the Ross Creek project and the disposal of surplus equipment. And this is another one where maybe the board could weigh in on a policy. That the current level of $1,000 to me seems kind of low, and we might consider a way to maybe for anything up to some number, $2,000, I don't know what, just put it as a consent calendar item and lifts the minimum amount, increase the minimum amount. But that's something the board could consider later. So I think that was the main things we discussed. You can add anything, Doug, if you can think of it.
No, I think one of the things we both agreed, Tom, is that the finances are in outstanding condition. And I want to thank Steve and Felicia for their great work. We're under budget on labor. We're under budget on a number of things. We're under budget on capital, which is, it is what it is. We've spent an awful lot of money on capital, and we all agree that it's winding down. So our budget is in better shape than we thought it would be, and I'm very pleased to see these results. So I think we're in great shape. With that, I'm going to go to number 2, the Ad Hoc Education and Outreach Committee. Pam, do you want to do that report?
No, you can, Doug.
Okay. All right, I will. It was kind of an interesting and I'd say it wasn't exactly the way it was planned out. Let me explain. We had an approval in March to outreach regarding the Larkspur Landing property. And the way that plan is we were going to have a survey brought to the board of directors, and then we were going to talk about the survey, and then we were going to have a public meeting, possibly some sort of a Zoom town hall. But Pam and I weren't in favor of that. And so we wanted to bring it to the full board, and there's some options we could talk about. And what we didn't do is we didn't look at the survey. So despite the fact that our consultants did such a great job, we didn't look at that survey, and we didn't want to. Pam and I thought that we really had spoken many times about a blank slate. And let me pause a little bit away from Ross Valley Sanitary and talk about my personal views on the renaming of Drake High School and the survey they offered. It was, in my opinion, completely fake and dishonest, a disingenuous survey. So a small number of teachers wrote a survey asking what the new name of Drake should be. And for example, one of the names on the list was not Drake, which probably would have won overwhelmingly. And then they allowed this survey to be voted on by everybody on the planet Earth, including Sri Lanka and Afghanistan Taliban rebels. At the end of the day, they came up with the name, a Miwok name, and then the Miwoks told them they didn't like it. But the point of the story is I thought the whole thing was a fraud. So that is in the back of my mind about a survey. So we talked about maybe changing this and having a public town hall first. But on the other hand, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do it something where at the next board of directors meeting, we have an open time for public expression where we invite the public, and then we have the survey presentation, and then we have a second open time. That might be a compromise I could be interested in, because I understand the idea that it's hard to have, we don't want, an open piece of paper can be time consuming, and we have intelligent consultants and there are a lot of options, but Pam and I wanted to bring it back to the board. So I want to stop talking, because that really was the meeting. We kind of stopped everything, and I want to ask the other 3 board members their thoughts on this. And I don't know who wants to start. Pam, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
This is not on the agenda. All we're supposed to do is report out.
No,
This
we
is
can have a
not an
discussion.
agenda.
Andrea, can we have
Let me
discussion?
finish, Doug. Let me finish. This is not an agenda item to go into solving future events. Andrea, you can chime in, but it's not an agenda item. It's only a report out.
I think the reality is somewhere in between you two. This is technically on the agenda, but it is as a committee's report out. So the idea is that the committees are reporting out and that this doesn't turn into a longer discussion. That said, there have been times when a committee report out has led to a handful of comments, but I wouldn't want it to be more than that, because the public hasn't been made aware that this would be discussed separately.
Okay. So
Thank you.
with that in mind, and we don't have any time pressure here, so Michael, your mic's on, so let me ask you your comments on our report out.
I thank you for the report out, and I understand, and I agree with Pam, is that we, if this is a hot topic, I don't know that it is, then it has to be agendized if we're going to even discuss it, and we have plenty of time.
Well, I'm going to remind you that the attorney for Ross Valley just said we could have the opinions of the board members. So I'm asking that. If you don't want to, that's fine too.
My opinion is, I think if we're going to have a discussion about it, it should be agendized so that, in the interest of full transparency, that our constituency can be aware that a discussion is going to take place and be aware to do it. So
Okay. All right. Very good.
That's my opinion.
Mary?
So I think if I'm understanding correctly, that the meeting, the purpose of the meeting was to review a survey which the committee refused to look at. And so we're going to bring it back to the full board to look at it?
Well, no, the idea was to bring it back to the board to discuss whether we want to look at it before we have a town hall type meeting, or whether we want to do it in a different way, such as bringing it before the full board, but maybe we could do it in a different manner than we normally do. My suggestion was open time before the agenda, before the proposed survey is done, and then maybe an open time after the survey is done for public. But it was just a matter of how we address this survey. We haven't seen the survey yet.
So, I mean, what you said about the Drake High School naming makes me think that you didn't like the process because you felt like the outcome was
Predetermined.
or at least being influenced. Do you have the same feeling about this?
No, because I haven't seen it. I just want to make sure we don't repeat the same error.
Well, so I guess I would be curious. I would like the consultants to present it to us, and then if we felt that there was some way in which the outcome was being predetermined. Anyway, I think
Okay.
inviting the public to comment on a survey that we haven't even looked at a draft of is too amorphous an activity. So
Okay.
if I had been on the committee, I would have said, well, let's look at it. And if we are suspicious that there is some, that there's some outcome that's being forced by this, then let's provide feedback. But if it's merely the committee saying, we didn't want to look at it, we feel the whole board should look at it, then obviously agendize it for next month and the whole board
Okay.
would look at it.
Very good. Thank you very much. Tom?
Well, I kind of agree that I'm not prepared to discuss how to proceed on that tonight. And let's just make an agenda item for next meeting.
Done. Thank you very much. Okay. Steve, can we agendize that for the next meeting, please?
I mean, I would
Excellent.
just ask, are we messing with a schedule that I think Doug said we don't have any time pressure, meaning with regard to tonight, because we have a relatively light agenda.
No, I meant the whole survey, we have time. This is
Oh,
not
okay.
pressing.
Okay. As long as
Yeah.
there's, no, I don't know what kind of deadlines there could be. Okay.
Very good.
Doug, I'm a little confused. I thought you wanted to have a public meeting before the survey was addressed, and you were going to
I
put
think-
out some questions to the public, what
No,
they want.
what I heard from the other board members tonight is that they'd like to have this thing agendized to discuss
Okay.
the survey and then take it from there. So that's fine. Okay. Number third report out is CASA. I didn't go. Steve, who went and who would like to report on it? Michael went. Michael, you want to report on it?
I did it for us.
Excellent.
It was nice. It was interesting. It was not as busy as it usually is there because I think a lot of people didn't come. Masks were required at every session. Everything indoors was masked. And there was some good stuff. It was interesting. Everybody getting back in tune again. The CRSMA meeting, which I went to, which I'll sit with Felicia sometime, and I thought they had some really interesting ideas about the importance of onboarding, which is when I've heard the word, but didn't really know much about it, is that before you bring a person into the organization, how you're going to do that and make them feel comfortable and with everything that's going on. And so they had a big presentation, which I will get to Felicia, about ideas about how to do that and bring a person on in a different way. And I believe we've done it in the past. In particular, one of the things I liked the most was the idea of having an onboarding buddy. And without going into any detail on that, the idea is that we have lots of people with lots of experience in the organization who don't have the word general manager or assistant general manager, and it's frightening in front of them. And that a person coming in, Steve and Felicia could pick people who would be a good fit to be an onboarding buddy, who that person could then feel free to ask and not with the appearance stupid or anyway. They gave a lot of reasons why that would be a good idea, and I thought that's pretty cool. The first day they talked about fleet tracking, where's all your trucks? Well, we know all that. So I think we are way ahead of the game. They talked a lot about coming back to work after a pandemic and how that's going to look, and and not so much that they don't know now, but that maybe for future events such as a pandemic or other things, I'm sure that we will and do have in place procedures now that we haven't thought of before, but they talked a lot about that. They talked about the drought and how that's affecting everybody, and especially the water reuse people. Okay, here's the quiz for the night. Why is it called purple pipes?
What?
Why are purple pipes called purple pipes? There's actually a reason. The guy who developed it at Irvine Ranch was colorblind. Green and blue and red were out of the question. He could see purple, so they called it purple pipes. Who knew?
Well, unfortunately, Irvine does think they invented purple pipe, and I've heard that, but turns out Israel came up with purple pipe before Irvine, but Irvine hates to admit it.
Could be. That's what the guys from Irvine said. So anyway, it could be. I'm just saying that's what they said. And that was nice.
Let's try Irvine and tell them they didn't get it right.
There was one of the.
You see this a lot in water. A lot of people say they invented things that they didn't really invent.
On Thursday, from 10 to 11:15, There was a panel called Communicating with Diverse Constituencies. And Gabriella Dow was supposed to be there, but she was quite ill and couldn't attend. But her compatriot, and I didn't catch her name, was there. And
From NV5.
from NV5. And every single slide that was up there, Ross Valley Sanitary District, Ross Valley, everything was, every slide was about us. And so I got some people who said that was nice. And it was nice to see us up there. We got nominated for 2 things. We didn't win them, but it's nice to see us nominated because one of these days we'll win something. Anyway, that was it.
Well, I think there was some voter fraud there if we didn't win.
Huh?
I think there was voter fraud if we didn't win.
Well, I actually suggested that.
What were we nominated for, Michael?
Oh, God. Steve, you know. They didn't actually say. They just.
Yeah, we were nominees for the public engagement and outreach.
Oh, I want to recount.
And then we were also nominated for innovative technology for the smart covers.
Well, that's great. Okay. Thank you, Michael. And Steve and Felicia and the team, congratulations on the 2 nominations. Central Marin Sanitation Agency, Michael, do you want to take that?
Absolutely. Put your feet up. This is going to be a while. We didn't have a meeting, but I will update you on the replacement covers. As you know from the last meeting, everything was fine. The covers had just been examined. They were given thumbs up on both covers, and we had it in the CIP to replace them in the next 5 years, but not now. And they went out one Friday, and there's a big rip and a seam in the outer cover. There's 2 covers. When they were originally built, there was actually just a platform that went up and down on the top. But when they wanted to do biogas, they installed those covers. And there's an inner cover which contains the bad stuff that we make into electricity, and an outer cover which then, in case there's a rip on the inner cover, prevents it from going into the environment. The outer cover ripped catastrophically. And now you can see from the road that one of the digesters, has a big cover on it, and the other digester has been completely drained. And so we've actually ordered another cover. Originally, when they built the plant, the city of San Rafael required that they make the covers green like the trees. And that was a special order, but they were doing it so far in advance, it didn't matter that it took an extra 6 months and extra money. So they had an emergency meeting centers, and there's a very lovely tan. And that is not special order. So that has been ordered, and we have people on site who have been doing work with our cogen engine, and the company that makes the covers will be delivering it, I believe, sometime in September. Take about a month to install. They have to put up scaffolding. While they've got the digester chain drained, they will go and clean it all out and see if there's any maintenance which needs to be done on the inside, which is hard to determine when it's in play, and then begin to bring the digester back up, and we can start making energy again just in time for our new cogeneration engine to come up at the beginning of the year. We'll probably have it up and going before the second digester will be up and going, but it'll be much more efficient when we get the new engine in there. And other than that, there was not a meeting this month.
Thank you, Michael. I'd want to add to that 2 things. One, we had a warranty, a slowly declining warranty, meaning at the very beginning we had 100% warranty. At this point in the situation, we have a 30% warranty, so 30% of the cost is covered by the company that we purchased the original cover by. Secondly, when the digesters are fully cleaned the Central Marin Sanitation Commission members will get a notification if we wish to take a tour on the inside just to see what the inside of a digester is all about. We'll be awarded that opportunity. I will pass that time and date to General Manager Moore, and I'd ask him to pass it on to the Board of Directors here. If anybody wishes to go inside and see what the inside looks like and the condition of it, they'd certainly be more than welcome to do that. Thank you, Michael. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Make sure to bring a date. Make sure to bring a date. That'll be a once in a lifetime opportunity. Hey, want to come see my digester?
And bring lunch.
Bring lunch.
Mary, Central North Bay Watershed Association, please.
You mean Pam, I believe.
I apologize. I didn't mean that, Pam.
What did you say?
I'm sorry. I'm simply asking for a report on the North Bay Watershed Association meeting.
They did not have a meeting. It's tradition. They take August off.
Okay, thank you very much. Verbal report by the General Manager, Steve.
Thank you, President Kelly. Appreciate the updates on Central Marin. Yeah, I suppose maybe one way you could look at the tan cover is it fits a little bit more of the California landscape right now.
That's what they said.
But not green.
And not green, right? And the green is fading anyway, so.
The alternative was get the white and hang Jason up by a scaffold and have him paint it.
Yeah, that sounds rough. Yeah, tan will work. Good. Yeah, it's a nice reminder too, just, the wastewater sent to Central Marin has an energy value, and so every drop of wastewater that goes to that treatment plant is used for renewable greenhouse gas neutral energy. So it's pretty awesome that we really use every drop of wastewater to get energy value from here at Ross Valley and our JPA member agencies. All right. It's the gift that keeps giving, wastewater. So I just want to hit 4 things that we hit every month. This month, nothing else particularly of note. Number 1, on the Larkspur Landing former wastewater treatment property, we received EPA comments on the final completion report and went over them in great detail. Met last week to discuss, and today we produced a revised final completion report and we transmitted it to EPA. So we're keeping this process moving. It responds to this latest round, and all comments are clerical in nature, and all of our responses just provide more cross-reference information to all the extensive sampling data that were collected from PCBs, so polychlorinated biphenyls, during the 2-year excavation and remediation project. So there's many comments, but there are answers in the document based on the data, and we're just moving through all of that. So we got that back into EPA's hands today. Number 2 is our future headquarters at 1111 Anderson. First, great news. Last week, our consultant, Weir Anderson, submitted the permit application and fee to the city of San Rafael to remodel the building at 1111 Anderson. The plan check process has been initiated, and the first step toward refurbishing these premises to accommodate the needs of the district for a facility to carry out all of our functions at one location. And so this is an important milestone that we reached last week. Thank you, Felicia, for your work to get that going. And then on that point, we have a scheduled meeting on Monday. The second update on Comcast is to the former Comcast. Well, there's still Comcast there. We're meeting with Comcast on Monday to resolve the last comments related to mostly coming to some agreement on, what happens if our construction takes longer than planned, and what kind of credit will they be entitled to because of the inconvenience of having construction drag on and on. We understand that, and so we're just working through, coming up to an agreement on that last sticking point, and we should be able to soon thereafter execute the lease And that's, that falls in good timing with our commitments to actually do the construction. So it's coming together. My third item is related to our regional water board cease and desist order compliance. We have finalized the infrastructure asset management plan update. And the last item that we're just getting the final fine points on was the force main condition assessment. It took a little longer because we were using some experimental technology. It's worked out. It's been very helpful. And we saw it worked in one force main, and so we actually applied it to 2 other force mains that cross Corte Madera Creek, and or the one, let's see, the 2 that cross Corte Madera Creek, and then there's the one that goes along Sir Francis Drake Boulevard under the freeway. And we completed those condition assessment exercises. Good news, the force mains are in great shape, no leaking, no real anomalies of note. And so this is a peace of mind information for the district. And really we're working with the consultant to figure out, okay, how often should we do these assessments that show that our force main system is robust and reliable, as it's shown with this last round. And so as we get through those details, the next step is we will post this IMP on our webpage under district studies and reports. We'll let the regional water board know it's been finalized. And, I want to emphasize that this update that the district invested in, it defines our capital improvement program and our commitments that are based on risk management. So for the closeout of the cease and desist order, this shows that the regional water board that we're running a competent preventive program that is a pay-as-you-go program, requiring no borrowing for the next 5 years at least. And of the 605 pipe defects identified in the cease and desist order, we have 4 left, 4 more to do this calendar year. We completed one this week. That was very difficult up on a very high slope area in Greenbrae. We had success with that. So we've got 4 to go. I'm confident that we're going to be able to do that at the end of this year. That's it for the cease and desist order. And then fourth, real briefly on the drought. Last month, you'll see in our metrics report this month, we used 68,000 gallons of recycled water. And I had our staff dig into our water bills from Marin Municipal Water District to see how much potable water we used in July. We used about 3,700 gallons. That's less than a house that has 2 people in it. That's how much potable water we use in July. So if you do the math, we use 95% recycled water for our sewer cleaning activities in July 2021. 95%. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. That's great news on all fronts. Thank you very much. As far as the Anderson Drive, I want to note that the reconstruction of the downstairs that we've offered is really de minimis. It's not. There's not a lot of stuff going on there. Is that right, Steve?
That's right. Yeah, Felicia could remind me, but I think the total cost, because there aren't that many reconfigurations there, are on the order, of $75,000, something like that.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Verbal reports by board members. Michael, do you have anything? Okay. Mary? No. Pam?
No, but I just want to add to Steve's report. I think we should let MMWD know about your great conservation. Makes us look really good. So might want to ask Jack to put it in their newsletter.
Thank you. Good point. Tom?
Well, we had those 2 items that we talked about in the Finance Committee that I'd like to have on the future agenda. One is investment of pension funds, and the other is a review of our policy for surplus.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yes, I'd agree with putting on those those two on a future agenda item without objection from the other board members?
I don't object. Can we also talk about CMSA and their pension issues and how it
Sure.
affects us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So Steve, will you take note of that? Great. I see you nodding. Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to bring up number 11, the consent calendar. We have two items on that, approving the meetings of July 21st and accept the year-end financial statements. Would anyone like to pull any of the two agenda items? I'm seeing people shake their heads. I can't see you, Tom.
No.
Then do I have a motion? Okay.
I move approval.
Thank you, Tom, making for the motion. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mary.
Sorry,
Okay,
I'm not-
would I have a roll call, please, Julia?
Thank you, President Kelly. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Beggs,
You said Megs? Yes.
thank you. Scylla,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes. Okay,
Yes,
thank you very
thank you.
much. Moving to number 12, consideration of awarding and authorizing the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute construction contract for the Ross Creek Sewer Removal Project, which is project number 944, with coast side concrete and construction in the amount not to exceed $82,500. And Steve, would you give us a report on that, please?
Thank you, President Kelly. Yes, this item is for the board's consideration to award a construction contract to Coastside Concrete and Construction, known as Coastside. One of the contractors that's on our list that we established under Ordinance 110, it was 1 year ago that we brought a proposed Ordinance 110 to the board to help with construction project informal bidding. This is an authority that's afforded under the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, or UPCA. And so by adopting this ordinance under UPCA, we have the authority to do informal bidding or targeted solicitation of bids on specialty work, especially such as creek work, the Ross Creek Sewer Removal Project. And so this project highlights the use of that tool to do projects between the $50,000 limit in the financial policies for the general manager to approve, and $200,000. And given the cost of construction these days, that's a reasonable middle zone, in terms of not having a formal bidding process under the public contract code. So it creates some efficiencies for the district, and we can target our solicitation of bids to those specialty contractors in sensitive locations. So the low bid process works well for the public interest in terms of ratepayers and getting the best deal financially, but sometimes you might get a contractor that doesn't have the skill set or knows how to work in sensitive areas such as creeks that support steelhead trout, such as Ross Creek, or working in close quarters with residences, as is the case in this location along Shady Lane. So that's, I think, something I wanted to highlight to the board, was that this process was useful to get bids from competent contractors in slope stabilization and working in stream beds. We solicited bids from 4 contractors and we received bids from 3. And we could really recommend any of the 3 to the board as good contractors to do this work. In this instance, we recommend the low bidder, Coastside, based on their track record, and our knowledge and checking of references on their work. We think the board will get a good value. As we discussed in the Finance Committee, the $82,500 low bid here is actually less than the design, permitting, environmental budget for the engineering firm that we paid to design the project, which was more like $109,000. But that's the nature of this type of work. There's a lot of effort that goes into studying the creek system to make sure what we propose won't destabilize the system, cause flooding or damage upstream due to erosion. So we need to do a lot of homework to make sure that this feature it functions somewhat as like a dam in the stream bed. It has sediments accumulated behind it. This old sewer that was built in 1926 as part of the original trunk sewer system of here, the oldest, or maybe the oldest sanitary district in the state of California, and one of the first projects of this old sanitary district. So it's an old piece of infrastructure. Everything's kind of grown up around it. And so we had to be careful in our design and our permitting, working with the state and federal agencies. And therefore, it costs more to plan and design something like this than it does to actually do the work. And so anyway, we do recommend that we have a competent low bidder, and we use these innovative tools to, I think, get the right people to do the job. And with that, I recommend awarding the contract. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Pam?
Not quite a question, but I want to thank Steve for doing an exceptional job on this, because it was a weird sort of project when you think about it, and the history and the environment and the grant that I never thought would ever get, like you said. So kudos to the team, and I'm ready to vote. I went to the finance committee, so I have no questions.
Michael or Mary?
I just wanted to ask if we're under no legal obligation to do this. This is just good for the environment. We're spending this chunk of change. Are we going to, have NV5 do a little spotlight on how the Ross Valley Sanitary District is going above and beyond for environmental preservation or something like that?
Excellent point.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. We have been featuring it in our monthly GM bulletin. We take a little picture of the existing sewer, and we've been mentioning it alongside other capital improvement project commitments, recognizing that, and I think we've mentioned in those narratives that it is something we're doing voluntarily. And then we did last month, in June, when we got the grant, we did mention it in the GM bulletin. But your point's well taken. We should circle back with NV5, once we've completed the work, which won't take too long. We're supposed to get this done before October 15th. So I appreciate the suggestion. We'll circle back with them and think of ways we can highlight the work. We want to get it done first, I think, because there's still some things to get done.
I mean, at least let Sandra Goldman and Friends of the Corte Madera Creek know.
They help out.
And the plans to kind of take out a huge swath of the concrete that runs, that is the creek by my house, are moving forward apparently. So anyway, I think there's, it's a good opportunity to draw attention to what we're doing to help make the creek along here more natural with improved technology, which is sort of a trend.
Thank you very much for highlighting that. I think also, Director Meggs we can give her some information to provide to the North Bay Watershed Association too, because this is an example how a collection system can think with a one water mindset that, where our system intersects with the storm drain and the creek system, that we are taking steps to take away conflicts. And that's a one water mindset where we're meeting multiple objectives for water resources. Because we did do the siphon under the creek, successful project, working great. That's the old trunk line was replaced with now a new modern trunk line. Will get us 150 years of use, and so definitely appreciate you highlighting that, and we will do what we can to show the board's commitment to these multi-objective projects.
Thank you. Michael?
Awesome.
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, hang on. Tom?
No, I'm really pleased with this project, and we discussed it yesterday.
I move we authorize the general manager, upon review and approval of council, to execute a contract with Coastside Concrete and Construction for construction of the Ross Creek Sewer Removal Project, project number 944, and an amount not to exceed $82,500.
Second,
Thank you very much. We've had a motion and a second. Julia, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Borstein,
Absolutely, yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Beggs,
Yes.
Zilla,
yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Motion approved. Number 13, consideration of approving disposal of surplus-owned district equipment. Surplus district-owned equipment, pardon me. Steve.
Yes, Ben Connor, our acting operation maintenance manager, helped put this together. Regrets you couldn't attend tonight. You will take up the next possible opportunity to present to the board. And so really grateful for his efforts on this. And I want to acknowledge, obviously, Felicia's helpful assistance in working this through our financial policies and process, helping with the staff report and the process. But also this was a case where our management analyst, Courtney Buell, pitched in some really helpful elbow grease to get some viable data together on this electronic equipment that's we've recommended the board should consider as surplus. And as the staff report notes, we've accumulated various electronics equipment that at this time, on a review of our experience with it, we feel is surplus to the district's needs and operations. I will make the point that staff and the district's board all share a commitment to explore the use of technology to create efficiency in our operations and make the work more efficient and productive and interesting, because it is interesting work when we apply the technology. And there are successes that you're very well aware of that we've talked about within the last year in terms of looking at how smart covers, the remote monitoring of water levels in manholes has helped us avoid sanitary sewer overflows and keep an eye on pump station operations from a remote, in addition to SCADA assistance, we can use this smart cover system to as a double check on pump station activity. And so that's one example, and there are others. We use the acoustic technology. Instead of using the cameras, we can do quick snapshots on whether there's blockages in sewers, very efficient. And then our camera technology is also cutting edge, where we've used high definition photography to do a better job of categorizing pipe defects. And you've supported those efforts, and we've internalized that into our operations. At this staff report, we discuss some technology. We feel we try it out and feel that it has run its course, and for the reasons described, the laser scanner, the Pro Eye headset with the headset cable for distance learning in these settings, we don't feel that it's necessarily the best way to teach our staff on how to operate the pump stations, for instance. This has been successfully used in refineries, but more hazardous atmosphere conditions that we really don't typically encounter. Even though we have sewer gases, we don't have the same kind of hazardous settings that you'll see in a place like an oil refinery where these remote learning tools are used. So we tried out, we gave it a shot, and we determined that it wasn't really creating efficiencies didn't have suitability. Similarly, the virtual reality, looking at applying that technology to see utilities in the field, almost like X-ray vision. It's an idea that's not out of reach for the technology, but it's probably, I would call it, instead of cutting edge, I'd call it bleeding edge, and that it's not really embraced by our fellow utilities yet. And so I think it may be a couple decades ahead of its time. And so we recommend that we surplus these things while they still have value, and you have an accounting of what we think we can recoup for our investments and our experimentation with these technologies. So we recommend that the board allow us to declare this item surplus and give us some flexibility to either sell them via auction, as we've done with vehicles and that sort of thing, or other methods such as, Craigslist, eBay, that type of way to get this technology in front of people and get the best possible price as an exit strategy for this phase. So with that's all I have. I don't know if Felicia has anything to add, but the financial policies do dictate that if a piece of equipment or material has a value of excess of $1,000, that we need the board's approval to dispose of it as surplus equipment or materials.
Let me remind you that earlier in the meeting, Tom Gaffney asked us to put that number on a future agenda item, and so we'll get that done. Michael, did you have anything to say?
I like the idea of using Craigslist for these items, especially in the Bay Area. So I like that write-up a lot, and I agree with the idea of not sending these to an auction house
Because you got to pay a fee.
where we have to pay a fee and get them to the auction house. This way, you could put them on and people could meet us in the parking lot. We can give it to them.
Well, eBay as well, Michael.
Well, eBay off, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll look at this further. We were asking for some flexibility that we could use any of these tools to get the maximum benefit to the district. So we hadn't made one decision or another. I didn't mention the drone. I think one of the main reasons why the drone didn't work out was the vegetative cover kind of made it hard to see what was on the ground, and we kind of had second thoughts about the public acceptance of us using drones in neighborhoods.
Okay. Mary, any comments?
No, I would just say I seem to recall that these were sort of mixes, like, pet projects, which is fine at the time, and so if it doesn't make sense to pursue them at this time, given the staff or the evaluation of them, I get it.
Okay. Pam?
No, it's time to clean out the closet.
Okay. Tom, any comments, questions?
No.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we consider approving the disposal of surplus district-owned equipment.
Consider approving or approve?
Approve.
Second? All right, Pam, thank you. Julia, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, President Kelly. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
thank you, Meggs,
Yes.
Zilla,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
unanimous, thanks.
Thank you very much. And then the final item is the informational items, the monthly operations and maintenance metrics report. Prior to hearing from Steve, I would point out that according to this report, there's never been an SSO as long as I've been president of the board. Whether that will change next month is not on the agenda, Steve. But this is a very good metrics report. Would you tell us a little bit about the reports here we have?
Sure, my pleasure. Again, Ben Connor helps me pull this together each month, and Patrick Filippelli is key in pulling the data together and making nice graphics and everything. A couple of highlights. You mentioned, yes, this is the second month in a row, July, where we had no sanitary sewer overflows from the public sewer system. And that's a record for us. We haven't broken that yet, since 2007, since we've been keeping track of this. Our best so far is 2 months in a row. So we've matched our best SSO free period.
Good work.
Yeah. And, I know that some districts, will go a year or two without an SSO. What's different about us? over 7, I think, well, we reduced it, but it's about 68% of our system is 6 inches or less in diameter. We have a lot of 4-inch pipe too. And so we have an older system. And so as my mentor in engineering, Ed Newt, once told me, who worked here in Marin since he, I don't know what his birthday was, but it's early in the 20th century, I'll just say. Back in the early 20th century, when a lot of our infrastructure was built, labor was cheap and materials were expensive. Today, it's the opposite. Labor is expensive and materials are cheap. So it doesn't really matter what diameter pipe, it's about the same costs, unless you're really talking small and huge. But it wasn't the case in the 20th century. So our system is undersized, compared to other systems. Even across the hill in Terra Linda, they all have 8-inch sewers everywhere. And they're more resistant to root intrusion and blockages that cause overflows. So we went from 72% to 68% 6 inches or less just in the last 10 years, which is interesting, right? We're moving the needle to make it a little bit bigger system and be less vulnerable to people using toilets as trash cans and roots getting into our 6-inch and 4-inch sewer mains. But that's kind of the heart of our challenges. SSOs going to 0 are tough for Ross Valley Sanitary District because of these facts. So, but we're slowly getting a better performance, and that's shown in our metrics reports. And we'll have an annual metrics report in October that will show that our SSO totals are continuing down a downward trend. And so that even, and so it helps to have 2 no spill months for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing we've been tracking is the flows to CMSA. And while our percent, and so this is on board packet page 81 or 5 of 15, we upticked on the percent of influent flow to CMSA, but we actually are coming down because of the drought, and the lack of groundwater infiltration, and the people conserving water making a huge difference, right? So it's interesting how our total flows for the month went from 102 million gallons down to 99 million gallons, which is the lowest in the last 12 months. But our percent of influent went up slightly from 42 to 43. 42 was the lowest we've had in the last 3 years. So, all signs point to lower inflow or infiltration, and then we're seeing our customers move the needle on their water conservation measures. It's really interesting. People ask wastewater, does the drought affect you, in the operations? Do the low flows affect? And I actually, filled out a survey this week from Cal State Sacramento, and I polled our supervisors, in terms of field observations. And we don't really get an impact from the drought, or we don't get an impact operationally from low flows in our system. It just doesn't have an effect that, in terms of, we can't detect an increase in sewer gases from higher residence times. And we're out there doing our line maintenance plan, and, we're seeing an increase in root intrusion though, because the roots are following the wastewater because the water tables are dropping due to the drought. So we're the only game in town for plants in the watershed, and so we do have more roots that intrude, but we're not seeing an impact because we don't, due to lack of scour or that kind of thing. I've heard that before in other systems. We just aren't seeing that here, and we're not seeing odor issues here like we hear about in some other systems. We're just not getting more complaints. Our staff don't feel like the odors are worse. They're there, but they're not noticeably more impacted by having low flow. So it's, I think it's important to share those observations, because I do hear the talking points that, wastewater systems are stressed because people aren't flushing enough toilets and washing enough clothes. I think that's a myth, or it's overstated, let's just say. In our system, it's not really having a noticeable impact. So interesting, right? If you want to get down into the details, I think you'll appreciate this. We did have an alarm for a low water alarm on pump station 12 and pump station 13. They're the two that are in Bon Air Center. And it was our staff were scratching their heads like, well, why are we getting alarms over here? And it was because when there's a ramp down from our VFDs at the pump stations, when it gets to low water and it's turning off, we don't do a hard stop. We do a ramp down. And so it's still pumping a little water out of the wet well. And that water level is kind of going down. And there were these preset levels when pump station 12 and 13 were built recently. Remember we did the ribbon cutting and all that? And, they just said, well, this will be a low water alarm. Well, now the low water alarm got tripped because the inflow from the water conservation was so low that, the wet well elevation kind of dipped down. So our solution is reset the low water level, because now we have a new reality. But there was no problem. It was just, it triggered an alarm and we just needed to reset our operational range. It didn't have any impact on the pumps or anything like that. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
That's how the drought affected us. We had a low water alarm.
Steve, I never thought about it until you said this today, but what you're saying is because of the drought, the lack of groundwater, the tree roots naturally grow towards any cracks in the pipes and make them worse because that's where the water is. Trees are smarter than I thought they were. I mean, really, it's really kind of remarkable. Comments or questions from the board? No for Michael, no for Pam, no for Mary. Tom?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you. And with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. The next regular meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District will be on September 15th, 2021 at 5 p.m. via GoToMeeting. Thank you all very much and good night.
Night. Thank you.
President Kelly. Good night, everyone.